Yo, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. You already
Peace.
know what it is, man. It's Plotting Progress Podcast. It's episode 21.
Damn,
Episode 21. So we 21
crazy.
deep. Uh Thank y'all for tuning in and watching us. You already know we got some jewels to drop and some little bit of game and conversation for you regarding this land ownership and off grid and gardening and everything that we like to talk about. But before we bring on the guests and get into that, true guy, we got to who spit those bars.
Indeed, carrying on tradition. So let's just get right into it because we got a real good guest today. So, spit them bars. As real as it seems, the American dream ain't nothing but another calculated scheme to get us locked up, shot up, back in chains, to deny us of the future, rob our names, kept my history of mystery. But now I see the American dream wasn't meant for me, because Lady Liberty is a hypocrite. She lied to me, promised me freedom, education, equality, never gave me nothing but slavery. And now look at how dangerous you made me, calling me a madman, because I'm strong and bold with this dump full of knowledge of the lies you told. Promised me emancipation in this new nation. All you ever gave my people was starvation. Fathers of our country never cared for me. They kept my ancestors shackled up in slavery. And Uncle Sam never did a damn thing for me except lie about the facts in my history. So now I'm sitting here mad because I'm unemployed, but the government's glad because they enjoy it. When my people are down so they can screw us around. Time to change the government now. This might give it away. The power.
I was gonna say Chuck D, bro, but
Yeah. Is it Chuck D?
That's the very first song Tupac ever recorded.
Really?
Oh shit.
damn.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it
It's
was
called what?
Panther Power.
Panther
Panther
Power.
Power. I thought you
okay.
said Fight the Power right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Panther Power. That was the one he did like at the high school?
Yeah. It was
Okay.
Okay.
strictly
Okay.
dope. Him and Ray Love. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah,
think
at the
that's the
university.
music. Hey,
Yeah.
can I kick the second verse?
Go ahead, man.
Yo, my mother never let me forget my history, hoping I was set free, chains never put on me. Wanted to be more than just free. Had to know the true facts about my history. I couldn't settle for being a statistic. Couldn't survive in this capitalistic government because it was meant to hold us back using ignorant drugs to sneak attack in my community to kill the unity. But when I charged them, tried to claim immunity. I strike America like a case of heart disease. Panther power is running through my arteries. Try to stop, oh boy, you'll be clawed to death because I'll be fighting for my freedom with my dying breath. Do you remember that it was what I'm asking you? You think you living free, don't let me laugh at you. Open your eyes, realize that you have been locked in chains. Said you wasn't civilized and stole your name because some time has passed. Seem you all forget there ain't no liberty to you and me. We all ain't free yet. Panther power. But I just wanted to kick that because that's the Tupac a lot of people don't know about. And when I say it's the first one he recorded, that's the foundation of where he come from. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So he kind of got off the path, but that's the
Dope.
foundation. And after Kylon kicked my favorite joint a few weeks back, I think when he
Yeah.
started getting like words of wisdom, I knew I had to kick that one. You know what I'm
For
saying?
sure. For
That's a
sure.
good
Now
one.
that's dope.
Yeah, dope.
That was
All right,
dope.
cool.
Delon, you want to introduce the guests?
Yep, absolutely. So first off, I want to say thank you to everybody that's tuning in and listening for rocking with us on 21 episodes strong.
What?
Today we got a real good one. We got a real special guest today, somebody who is active in the community, continuously having their hands in the soil. And from what I hear, man, always doing it in a pair of J's. So what I'd like to do is take the opportunity to introduce today's guest, Robin. She is the founder of Little Lighthouse Farm LLC. So why don't you
Rachel.
take a
Rachel.
Rachel? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My apologies, Rachel. I'm looking at the name on the screen too. That's what's crazy. I apologize, Rachel. But please give us a moment to correct me. Tell me how to say your name, and then tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, it's Rachel. It's Rachel Opio. Let's see. I mean, you pretty much so eloquently put it. I own a small urban farm here. I'm a regenerative farmer, and it's called Little Lighthouse Farm. Let's see. I've been in business for actually just had my 2-year anniversary for
Congratulations.
Little Lighthouse being a business. I am registered with the USDA. I let's see. How did I start? Well, To be honest with you, I started as a way to grieve for the loss of my mom. So my mom was a my mom. I always, had my mom living with me. My parents. I've always worked very hard to be able to take care of them. So my mom, she had this little garden in my backyard at the time, and I was really just the person who funded her little hobby. Um, but she herself, I always say, I call her a haphazard gardener because she just kind of threw seeds out, kind of hope for the best. But my mom couldn't cook, so she had like no intention of actually harvesting anything and using it. There was one particular time where I harvested a beet, and she like lost her mind because she was like, I was just gonna look at it, not actually eat it. So when she passed a few years back, I just let it go. It was too difficult for me. It was really difficult for me to like get out there and like do anything with it. I was in a pretty bad headspace. Grief is just one of those things. And then one day I was like, let me probably like a year. I think I let it go for about a year, and I decided to just, at least give her the respect of cleaning it up and making it somewhat nicer, right? So then I decided I would grow food for my family. And then that grew into, oh, I could grow food for like the neighborhood. Um, and I had actually always wanted to be a farmer. That simple farmer life always really appealed to me. It's very difficult, but it seemed so very rewarding. But unfortunately, agriculture is something that's been demonized for us.
Yeah.
So, I took the route that a lot of people take. Went to college, got into tech, so I was spent my career in tech. And every time I would say to somebody, I want to be a farmer, it would be like, why? Like,
Right.
there's a store, right? Like, you can just go to that. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. And then I decided, I could actually do this for real. Like I could actually farm for real, like start a whole farm.
Yeah.
And so I decided to. And then the reason I chose the regenerative practices that I follow is because, regenerative agriculture is really the way that you should be farming. The way that we've, monochromatically farmed for so many years is just obviously we're seeing those effects right now, most significantly with climate change. And so the idea that I could take care of my soil in order for the food to then take care of me was like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So that's the route I went. And then the other thing was growing nutrient dense food, real food, and making sure it's accessible. Like a lot of this food that we eat in this country came from us, on the ships with us in our hair, all sorts of stuff. And so it's crazy to me that, if I go to the grocery store, there's collard greens in a bunch and it's like 5 leaves and it's like $5.
Yeah.
And for what? For what reason? What is that food eating? What is it going to do for me?
Yeah.
So it was just about like making sure real food is accessible to us. um, so that's what I've done, and I am so very happy with my small little farm. I'm only farming a quarter acre. I feed hundreds of people. I'm a SNAP eligible retailer to have a WIC farm stand, a senior food nutrition farm stand. So I'm just out here making sure everybody has access to real food.
That's dope. Yeah, that's dope. Well, I just want to congratulate you on your 2 years in business, and
Oh,
then
thank you.
my condolences
Yeah.
to
My
your
condolences.
moms as
Oh,
well.
thank you. I appreciate that.
So you said initially that like farming for us is kind of, I forgot the words you used,
Demonized.
demonized.
Yeah.
What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, look at the if you, I mean, just looking at the history of farming in this country, right? First and foremost, if you just look at the way the South was before the whole diaspora, you know what I mean? Like, we brought these seeds over. We're the ones who had to get the land ready and take care of the land in order for this country to make any money in the first place. Um, and so, but then if you look at like land ownership, I mean, you guys know,
Yeah.
if you see the difference between that, black land ownership then versus now, you know, why aren't we going back to it? It's because they made it seem like it's like the worst job.
Yeah.
You know, it's too
Yeah.
hard. You know, and then they make things inaccessible for us as farmers. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's like, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah. You touched on a couple of things. Let's go back a little bit to start with the entire process. So you're farming on a quarter acre. Is it in your backyard? Is it
Yep.
an ancillary lot? Is it in your backyard?
Yep.
How did you go about the process of incorporating and then getting registered through the USDA?
I used something called the internet. Um, yeah, honestly, it's really about it. I just went,
Mhm.
you know, figured out what name. I chose Little Lighthouse because my mom really loved lighthouses,
Yeah.
and my mom is an as a native to Phoenix, as am I. So I'm second generation. And my mom was a teacher
Awesome.
here, and so she always would say, um, you know, she was a teacher for 42 years. She retired. She was retired for like a year, and then she went back. Like she couldn't stop. You know, like get a grip, sit down somewhere. You know, but if you asked her like why don't you actually just like sit down? She would say, she's just trying to teach a kid how to read. That's all she's trying to teach kids how to read.
And
That's
that's so
it.
important. So important.
That's it. Absolutely. And so she really was that guiding light. You know, she truly was a lighthouse. So that's why I chose that name. And then, you know, so that was it. I just got chose a name, checked to see if it was already a thing.
Mhm.
Jackpot, it wasn't.
Oh,
And so I registered. And then as soon as I had my LLC and like actually had my like tax number and all that, I went to the USDA and registered and submitted all the things that they needed as well.
yeah. And so
Was it a
then
lengthy? Was it a lengthy process? My bad.
no, go ahead.
No, it was not.
Hmm.
No, it wasn't lengthy, and they were actually really helpful. So
They give a lot of really good resources.
yes,
At the
tons of.
US, you mean helpful at the USDA?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So then tell me about becoming a SNAP retailer. How long before, after you were in business, did you become a SNAP retailer, and what does that process look like?
That process is a lot more in depth and very subjective. So it really depends. It's hard for me to like give real clear guidance on that because it really depends on your operation.
Mhm.
But I applied for it probably the end of last year. Yeah, so end of last year, and it took about 5 6 months for me to get all the approvals, but it was like a back and forth, you know, constantly like,
Yeah,
hey, we need this now. Hey, you said this on this form, but then you're saying this. You know, it was just like a lot of that. But
yeah.
again, they were so incredibly helpful. So if they would come back with stuff like that and I was lost, they
Mhm.
would just walk me through it. It was really nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you mentioned as well about how your mom would just scatter the seeds haphazardly and then they would just sprout. Tell me a little bit more about how that impacted what you're doing and how it's impacted what you're doing now.
Remember that I have spent my career in tech, and so I'm very much an analyst. Um, and and so I also have a master's degree in statistics and research.
Oh, awesome.
So,
Damn.
so so using that
Yeah.
research and development, if you will, from my mom, and that all those trials, I just sort of it
Yeah.
occurred to me like, okay, there has to be some way to like plan this better, and that's when I really got into like crop management, you know, and
Mhm.
like all the nitty gritty about that, and your soil nutrients,
Yeah.
and everything's different. You know, cauliflower doesn't need the same nutrients as a
Right.
tomato, you know, so
Mhm.
everything's so different. So it's all about like it's very strategic. It's very strategic. You know what? True. It's like chess.
He don't know nothing about no chess.
Look, did you guys play? So you guys played. I'm not gonna ask the question.
Wait, so,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
well,
buddy.
first of all, how are the babies?
Oh, they're alive. So
um,
it's summertime, so that's as good as you're gonna get.
yeah,
Yeah.
you talk
They're-
about
That's a
you talk,
seed. That's literally a seed.
Mhm.
you talk about feeding hundreds of people,
Yeah.
and when it comes to farming, um, what I was most ignorant when it comes to farming was how much you can harvest, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's going to run out real quick, and they don't understand how you can make a living off of that and just be able to, feed yourself and others.
Mhm.
When you say hundreds, what is the maximum amount that you think you can feed? And can you talk about how much you can actually harvest for the people who don't really understand how that works?
Yeah, and that's a difficult question to answer too, right? Because I think like farming is like the riskiest business there is, right? Like nothing's in my control. Like I can try and manage as best as I can, but at the end of the day, like I'm at the mercy of like the universe. So like I can try and plan all I want to, but a good example is the year before last, I had a lot of success with like broccoli and cauliflower, like tons of it, so much.
Hmm.
I was walking around the neighborhood. I think you saw that picture, True. I was walking around the neighborhood with a whole wheelbarrow just full of stuff, walking door to door. Like I was an ice cream person. Like, does anybody want some of this? Um, and so, but then this past winter, none of my cauliflower did anything. It all bolted so fast, and how do what can I do? What am I supposed to do? But with that being said, um, as far as like how much I can actually grow, I think it really depends on what crops you want to grow. It depends on how long you want to grow, like what your grow season is going to be. For me, I grow all year round, whereas a lot of people here, especially after last summer, they're not doing that. So, but let's see, to answer your question. Okay, so if I give an example, so like my Swiss chard and my collard greens, I would say for probably about 8 months, I was on average harvesting about 40 bunches a week.
Mm,
It's not bad.
nice.
That's a
Sounds
nice.
about right.
Now
And
you
how long
mentioned
is the season for that? Really quick. I'm sorry.
That was for 8 months straight,
Damn.
every single week, 40 bunches.
wow, that's amazing.
People need to know that type of stuff.
I
Agreed.
agree.
You mentioned the the whole industrial farming thing a little bit. Talk to us a little bit about what's going on in that area and how important is soil and the nutrients and things like that.
Soil is everything. Soil is what your food is eating. So, it's important that you take in the appropriate nutrients. Your food has to
Yeah.
do the same thing. Um, and so we've just unfortunately, you know, gone away from taking care of our soil, and we do that monochromatic farming. We have, you know, companies like Monsanto who like to get their hands dirty in there, and there's all the genetic modifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but soil is everything. Soil is everything. Um, okay, so here's a great example. I mentioned that I grow all year long. So last year, during the summertime, one of the biggest reason I was able to continue to grow is because I use cover crops. But I also use cover crops that are something that can be harvested and eaten, not just cover crop for like livestock feed, right? Like buckwheats and oats, something like that. No, I was using sweet potato, I was using mint, I was using purslane. So then my sweet potato is vining on top of the soil, and then like tomatoes were growing underneath,
Mhm.
and so they were staying cool because the sweet potato leaves are incredibly cooling. They're not dealing with any pests because right now is the time for all the wasps who want to like kill everybody, because they can. They're not a bee, so they have nothing to lose, and so they like to hang out underneath there, and so they're dealing with all the pests as the season goes on. But
The ecosystem.
correct. But because I planted sweet potato and I had tomatoes growing, which is fine. They're perfectly fine to companion plant together. The nutrients that a sweet potato and a tomato need are completely different than the
Yeah.
mint that was planted there. What else did I have planted there? Some purslane. And so I first off watered too much because it was the summertime and it was like 100 and stupid for over a month.
Yeah.
Um, But then people focus really heavily on that nitrogen, right? We hear that a lot. That's a huge buzzword
Yeah.
in agriculture.
Mhm.
Nitrogen fixers, nitrogen fixers. There's plenty of nitrogen fixing in the soil, but tomatoes and sweet potatoes don't need a bunch of nitrogen.
Man.
They like phosphorus. you know. And so then when I harvested all these sweet potatoes, they looked crazy. You know, they all looked crazy. They were so like the weirdest shapes. They looked like you couldn't eat them. They didn't look right. Like they looked like they were bad, but it was all because of the water and the nutrients in the soil.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's, a huge thing.
I had a question. So you said, well, two questions. What made you want to do it from like, from how you started it, in remembrance of your mom, and then what made you want to go as far as just feeding your family to feeding more families? What kind of what clicked and made you want to kind of do it on a broader scale? And then also, you said something about regenerative, and
Hmm.
I didn't know what you meant. Could you kind of
Yeah.
explain that as well?
Yeah. So I'll start with that. Regenerative farming is um, when your soil is your first priority. So you're essentially regenerating the land because of what we've done to it historically. So the best way for me to describe this is like the metaphor I use all the time. If I were to have you hold your arm out and I took a knife and I repeatedly just sliced your arm just over and over, it's obviously I'm going to cut you, you're going to bleed, your arm's going to need to heal for a while, right? In order for you to get full, usage back. But say I allow you to do that. So I allow you to get that full usage back. You're about to be at your 100% back, and I do it again. And then again, I let you sit there and I wait until you've almost healed, and then I do it again. So this is what we've done to our topsoil repeatedly with tilling and the way we farm. And now if I continue to do that to your arm, would is the expectation that your arm's ever going to function the same way again? No. But for
Nah.
whatever reason, we expect that from the soil,
Yeah.
you know? And so regenerative is not doing that. Regenerative is layering the soil, adding nutrients to the soil, to the top of your soil, keeping your top soil covered, just like it's important to keep your skin covered and taken care of. It's the same thing. It's the skin of the planet, and you're just taking care of it. So that's what regenerative agriculture is.
Biome. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good way of explaining it. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And so then that's actually the reason that I decided to take this to the level of expanding further than just my family and like my neighbors. And it was because I realized the way food has been traditionally grown here, the food
Yeah.
that we buy in the stores,
Exactly.
and I was just like, this is disgusting. It's really
Yeah.
disgusting. We should be able to get real food, and so I have to do this. Like I don't have it. I have to do it.
Yeah. But you're calling.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that's why I think, and that's the question I had. How important is giving the land rest?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, how important is it for you to have rest?
Exactly.
Right.
Sabbath. That's what was
Yeah.
declared.
All right, so I want to ask a question about the compare and contrast industrial farming or having a mega farm
Hmm.
versus being able to produce food for hundreds of people on just a quarter acre. And I say just a quarter acre, like that's a small plot of land, because when you're talking about gardening, that is actually a large, plot of land to be utilizing. So, what do you think are some pros and cons to having a smaller farm versus a larger farm? And then, do you have any livestock or any animals also on your farm?
Yeah. So I would say that their pros and cons are going to be really subjective. It's going to be depending on what you want to grow,
Mm.
right? Like it really depends on that. Like what kind of crops you're trying to grow and what your goal is. So like if you're trying to just grow like for your community and you have the ability to grow in an urban setting, go for it. Why not? Don't expect to grow any sort of like major big cash crop, and get a whole bunch of, get all sorts of deals with retailers, restaurants, whatever the case may be. But then if you would decide you want to do that, maybe a bigger cash crop, then sure, maybe a bigger piece of land is where you need to be looking at. So it's really all about your own growing goal. And then as far as livestock, yes, I actually do have I have chickens and I have bees.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you do with the bees?
I'm a beekeeper, so I have a hive, my own hive.
Produce
Yeah.
honey.
Mm-hmm.
Honey mead.
Not yet.
Okay.
That's on my list.
Yeah, for sure. I got one more question, and then True, I'll let you get in there really quick because I don't want to get too far away from
Yeah.
regenerative soil, and the importance of that. So if I'm just starting out, I got a piece of my backyard that I want to transform for Yoli and allow her the opportunity to grow without having a raised bed, right?
Sure.
So what should be the first steps to transforming my soil so that it's not only conducive to grow something, but conducive to grow all of these different variations of vegetables?
So I would say if you're going to do it that way, the way I started with all my beds is that I would first lay down cardboard. So to figure out what area you want, and then you lay cardboard on top of it. Make sure it doesn't have any plastic on it. So take the tape off. And when I say cardboard, I'm talking about like Amazon boxes, like
Yeah.
reuse those things. And so you lay them down wherever you want this garden to be. And then for a few days, what you're going to do is keep that cardboard wet. So you're just going to constantly be going out there and keeping it wet. What that's going to do is suppress any of like grass or any weeds that are underneath in the soil that's underneath it. But it also, cardboard is organic matter. So it's going to give the soil underneath something to eat, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah.
And so then what you're going to want to do is get soil, a good soil, and start dumping it on top and start layering that up.
On
It
top of the
doesn't
cardboard or
Correct.
the
On top
original
of the
soil?
cardboard. On top of the cardboard. And you don't have to just put you don't have to put just soil down. Like I like to layer everything, and like I said, add the organic layer, add the organic matter for my soil to eat and break it down. So I'll add like sticks and twigs and like um, uh, lawn clippings or like green manure, brown manure, like mulch, that kind of stuff, and then throw soil on top.
Okay.
And then you're going to want to, and I would probably get a good soil and also a good compost, mix them together, throw that, and then I would let that rest for a few days as well. And then happy planting.
That's simple, huh? Because
Pretty much.
I think at least for me, part of the complication of it is that I look at the process and I'm thinking, oh, I got to come out here and toil and I got to dig up all this dirt and make sure I get every single piece of grass, and then I got to sift through the old dirt and then
Nope.
compost, and just so that you make it sound like pretty much anybody can get started right in their own backyard or front yard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love to see it.
I think that's a good segue into what I want to ask. But first, how long you in beekeeping?
Over a year now. Yeah.
So now you were there when we had the okay, nice. So after that or before that?
After that. So that was my first introduction.
Nice.
And then I actually went on and did my master beekeeping at UC Davis.
Nice.
So
you actually did something with it. I don't remember anything, but one of the main determined ideas I have for what we're doing is to, each one teach one, for people to replicate and duplicate what we're doing. I want to know how what you're doing in your community, how it's resonating with other people, and have you seen others take up what you're doing and be inspired by you to do the same thing as far as duplicating, replicating what you're doing?
Yes, actually I have.
Nice.
I do have quite a few, especially people in the community that have been trying to grow their own food, doing all that, and doing it the right way too, And I really shouldn't say right or wrong way, but I'm biased, so the right way. So yeah, that's been really fun. And also, yes, I actually started an urban farm club at a school nearby as well, and who reached out to me because of what I'm doing, and so that was really fun and helped them transform their garden, and how all these kids involved, which is really fun. And then so I'm going to be doing it next year too, so that's exciting, and it's going to be even bigger. So I'm really excited. I already had a lot of the parents and teachers last year asking me, "You're going to come back, right?" I'm like, "Sure."
Lon, you're right, man. These sisters is killing it, bro.
Hey,
Yeah, we need to teach it. We need to teach this stuff. I mean, it falls in line with STEM, right? It's science, right? Horticulture is just science. So like, why aren't we teaching this?
Yeah. So let's talk about that real quick.
Delon,
what
I'm
he
gonna let
just
you borrow this,
mentioned.
bro. I'm gonna let you borrow this joint right here. You can see how easy it is.
Okay.
Hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about your experience as a black farmer and as a woman farmer,
Mm.
and how have the two, singularly and collectively, impacted how you farm, how you view farming, and how you share that information with other people.
It impacts me incredibly deeply. Um, and one of the reasons that it is that way for me is because I was actually, so when I was born, I was given up for adoption. I'm black. My parents who adopted me are white, and they were older. And as much as I love my mom to death, she did the best that well, she thought she was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But she and my father very much tried their hardest to make me as little black as possible.
Right. Right.
Um, and which was really difficult for me. Um, it just it just never sat well. It worked with my brother, but not me so much. Um, so like when I really started really getting into agriculture, when I decided, I'm going to really do this like for real, and really started getting into like researching, like crop management, just learning everything I possibly could. That's when I really started realizing the history of agriculture in this country, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks, especially because I had recently found, my family. I had done my ancestry, I had done all that and traced all that back. And so then to like find farmers in my lineage was just like, ugh, like everything. And it just felt like the ancestors, when I decided to do it, were like everybody was having a party, like, yeah, she figured it out. Yes, she finally did it. So yeah, that was huge for me, and so I knew that I needed to do it. Now, it is not easy being a black female farmer. I will say that in the industry, and I will say kind of it has its pros and cons. One of the pros I would say is with the recent farm bill, like we are at the top of the priority list for the USDA. So that's huge. We just haven't been historically. So it's really nice to see that, they like proactively will reach out too, which is really nice. They're not just kind of leaving it up to you, like fend for yourself type thing.
Yeah.
But I will say the most interesting reception I've received as a black female farmer has been in the South when I went to the oldest farm conference at Tuskegee in March. And I was not prepared for um, the skin folk not to like be my cheerleader, if you will. You
Sure.
know, it seems like here, when you tell people what you're doing, they're like, "Oh, it's so cool. Well, good for you. We need that. We need that." And they want to learn and all that stuff. But over there, it was just kind of like,
Mindset.
"Or what, are you lost?"
Mm.
And so I didn't really particularly care for that reception. But at the same time, it also lit quite the fire.
For
So
sure.
Yeah, I'm from Arkansas, so I know exactly what that can be like. That experience can be like. My
mm,
grandparents were sharecroppers, so
yes,
and I watched my grandfather get out there and work and produce from the land, and it was so amazing.
it's just ingrained in us. And I think when I have those conversations too with people, especially other Black women, um, and we talk about that, like this is really in our DNA. Like and it's not even just that farming is in our DNA, right? Like land stewardship is in our DNA. Like that's why we were put here in the first place, is to take care of the land.
Come on,
So
respect.
Yeah.
Well,
Um, do you think about duplicating your efforts? Like now that it seems like you got this process in your backyard streamlined down to a real science, literal science. You seem like you continued your education, attending conferences, going to school. So now, how do you feel about then duplicating your efforts, maybe extending to another farm, an ancillary farm? Talk to me about your feelings about that.
yeah, that's the goal. That really is the goal. So that is my plan. I'm still streamlining. It feels like this industry is one of those things that's like you never know everything. And I guess that if you think about it, right, the USDA says that you're a beginner farmer rancher if you've been doing it 10 years or less. 10 years seems like a long time. Like that seems fairly tenured, in like the corporate America world, but like not in this world, and I get it. um,
Yeah.
but yes, that is absolutely the plan. So by the next year, that's one of my big goals for next year. Is I would love to by the end of next year buy a large amount of land
Yeah.
and really start operating on a bigger scale. Um, and
Within the
also, there
city limits or on the outskirts?
more than likely it'll be on the outskirts just because of land cost. If I could keep it in Phoenix, that would be amazing. But just with the cost and just the way that land is being developed, I doubt it. Um, which it's okay. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of doing the research and making sure you can still get the food to people, which is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
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 You mentioned also being in the tech industry as
Mhm.
well. Tell us a little bit about just some of your experience and how that experience has impacted you there. I've been in the tech industry for 18 years. I'm getting ready to make my exit though.
Good for you. Yeah, so I've been in the tech space for quite some time, specifically HR systems.
Okay.
So like people analytics too, like all that kind of fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm that kid, you know. I love telling stories with data. So that's really been helpful for me in this industry because I am so data driven. Like I make decisions based
Statistics,
on, yeah,
things are
exactly.
okay.
And so it's and then also I keep track of things, right? So I test my soil and I keep track of all my tests. I do all that because I want to see the progression. So because that's interesting to me and to tell that story as well. So yeah, I think it's just been really helpful because I am an analyst at heart. So it's really helpful too with like processes because in agriculture you really do need streamlined processes that are consistent. And so that's been really helpful that I have that experience.
Yeah. And then you also mentioned about global warming as well. Tell us a little bit about just some of the things that are impacting from that standpoint, and then really more importantly, is there really a global warming?
So if we go back to the example I gave about cutting up somebody's arm, when you think about like
Yeah.
when you get sick or you get hurt like that, right? Your body typically your first response is a fever, and the fever is because your body's working really hard to fight whatever the situation is. So if we go back to that example and what we've done with our topsoil, that's essentially the same thing.
It's
The
us.
the earth has a fever. you know,
Indeed.
she's trying really hard. She's trying real
Birthing off
hard
her
to fix stuff.
right. She's trying to get
Right,
off her things.
right. But yeah,
It's
we're
us right now.
right, right. So yeah, that's that's what I always think about. So that's one of the biggest reasons I do the regenerative too, to be able to have that reverse impact.
Hmm. What made you want to do? Like I was looking at the page. What made you want to do like eggs and stuff like that, or even with the bees? Like most people that grow food, like all they want to eat is just vegetables. And what made you want to try other things?
Well, because it was farming, I was like, might as well see what this chicken stuff is all about. But again, I did a lot of research ahead of time. I have very crippling ADHD, and so like if you ever see any of my notebooks, I have to like draw a lot of pictures. So I have like diagrams of chickens and like label all their little body parts and all these different things. Same with the bees. Like I'm surprised you didn't see my drawings. True of all my the bee stages, but yeah. So I did so much research, and I was just like really interested in seeing if I could get some really decent eggs. But at the same time, I wanted to use my chickens for my soil. I wanted to pasture them around because chickens are the natural tillers, right? They're scratching up the ground for me. And so I wanted them to not just scratch it up, but also poop everywhere because it's some really nice gold for that soil. And that has made a huge difference.
Indeed. Do you
So
use coffee grounds at all?
Yeah, in my compost. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I got a last question. Just from me. If there was an outfit that had, and one of their initiatives was crop farming,
Uh-huh.
and they were looking for people to be on an advisory board for them, would you be interested in something like that?
Oh, absolutely,
Question. Great question.
absolutely. I love that stuff. Like crop
You'll be
advising.
you'll be hearing from us.
Don't threaten me with a good time. Don't threaten me with a good time. I'm telling you, you're gonna wish you never asked me.
Great minds think alike. Great minds think alike. I don't. I mean, I do have a ton of more questions, but
Me
we're kind
too.
of
I do
running
too.
thin on time.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're a wealth of knowledge for even for somebody that is very introductory level. If 10 years is the benchmark to no longer be a beginner, then I'm
Right.
in the embryo stage
The same
when it
here.
comes to this, you know. But eventually, I want to be an expert, and
Right.
that's where I'm trying to gear myself because I've always had this mindset. Same thing is that I'm gonna be a farmer. I'm gonna own a farm. I'm gonna live off of my own land.
Mm-hmm.
And the older I get, the closer I get to that becoming more of a reality every day. And so
Who
I
was
got a
the
ton of
garden
more
really for?
questions. Say that again.
Who was the garden really for then?
I mean, it's for all of us, for
Was
sure.
it for her then? Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Because you said you would have to get out there and do some tilling for her, but it was really for you.
absolutely. I mean, it's a community. I'm all about collectivism and community, and so
Indeed, brother. Indeed.
it only worked out that we share that same interest. She's a little bit more advanced than I am, but I just want to say thank you for taking the time. You've been a wealth of knowledge. I'm pretty sure that at some point in time we'll have a dialogue about maybe bringing you back on again, but you'll most certainly be hearing from me or from us about some other future projects that we can maybe collaborate on
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
yeah, you know your shit. No
Where
pun
can the
intended.
where can the viewers find you at or holler at you? Where can they get in contact with you if they want to grab some greens? I might want to pull up and with the fam and grab some greens or some,
Yep.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
So my website is littlelighthousefarm.com. On Instagram, it's at Little Lighthouse Farm or at Farming in Jays because I do indeed farm in Jordans.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. You have anything coming up in the immediate future or the near future that you also want to let some people know about?
Yeah, actually, I actually had this week has been a really good one for my little farm. I'll be participating in the Arizona Good Food Expo as one of the vendors in end of August in Tucson this year.
Nice.
That's August 27th. And then I'm very, very excited. But starting in the fall, October to April season, Little Lighthouse Farm will be a full-time farmer vendor at the Park West Farmers Market in the West Valley. So every
Okay.
Saturday I'll be there. So I'm real excited about that one.
For
Cool.
sure. Just checking out the site real quick. It's
Yeah,
pretty dope.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, it's pretty dope. Yeah, salute. Appreciate what you're doing. And then like True said, we'll be in touch regarding the
Yeah,
board things we're talking about, and even just we may have some help. We'll need some help when we go up there and try to start our garden up there. And
yeah, happy to help.
sure,
Cool.
for sure. Appreciate you. Anybody got anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you again,
All right.
Rachel. Really
Yeah, my
appreciate it.
pleasure. All right, bye.
Peace.
Bro, go wrap us up, Nick.
You're on
You
mute,
on
brother.
mute.
You're on mute.
Perfect. As you already know, we are unified in equity. And so we greatly appreciate y'all for coming and tuning in to another episode. This is episode 21. Like I said, it's one of my favorite numbers. So greatly appreciate y'all for tuning in. We are the Legacy Camp. We are the Legacy. Peace.
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 Catch
We
your
are
guys
the
up.
legacy. Peace.